GOP senator stands up and tries to fight witness during hearing. You probably heard of this already. Markwayne Mullin. Markwayne is one word somehow. M-A-R-K Wayne. Maybe it's pronounced Markwayne. Markwayne Mullin. He's a senator. This guy's a real piece of work. Just a lying scumbag and just a kind of a classic dumbass. Doesn't deserve any of the station or luxuries or privileges that he enjoys in his life. Although he'll tell you otherwise. He's been feuding with Teamsters president Sean O'Brien, who's a tough, bald guy. I like tough, bald guys. I consider myself to be one, although eventually I'd like to start doing exercise again. Eventually. So this was at a help committee hearing. Is that the health and what the fuck does help stand for? So here's the article. Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin stood up and tried to fight a congressional witness during a Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. Oh, that's what. Okay, Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee hearing on Tuesday. Mullin and Teamsters president Sean O'Brien have been beefing for months, with Mullin even challenging O'Brien to an MMA-style fight this summer. O'Brien had previously called Mullin a greedy CEO who pretends like he's self-made. In reality, just a clown and fraud. Always has been, always will be, O'Brien told Mullin to quit the tough guy act in these Senate hearings. You know where to find me. Any place, anytime, cowboy. And so I have a lot of videos. This was the most recent incident. But in spring of this year, I want to say March, just did some YouTubing. Here, this thing popped off. I don't know if these guys had resentments that had been cooking up before this, but that's the first time that it turned into one of those. You want to fight? That's where he did the anytime cowboy comment. So now that they had another hearing this past week, after like 6 or 8 months or whatever, Mullin brought it back up with Sean O'Brien and actually indicated that he wanted to move the conversation over to fisticuffs, which is generally not a good idea. So it happens. Yeah. Okay. So it kicks off about 3 minutes in. Let's just start it though. See what old Bernie is up to. A lot of disappointment aimed at Bernie these days. I have a major, my little affection tribute board in my brain for Bernie is rapidly being erased by his unwillingness to call for a ceasefire in Palestine. It's absolutely disgusting that he's not being more forceful about it. I'm sure he's reeling, and I'm sure he's facing a lot of different pressures and from a whole bunch of different types of avenues and stuff. But this is not a complicated situation. You should be against this, Bernie, fucking asshole. So it's disappointing, to say the least. Anyway, here he is chairing this hearing where things go a little bit intense.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to get a little factual on
this is Markwayne Mullin. Hi, it's me, Markwayne Mullin.
On what
Markwayne Mullin.
Mr. O'Brien just said about right-to-work states versus forced work states. According to the compensation data report, the U.S. Commerce Department, an average salary for private sector employee in 2019 was $4,000 higher than the average employee in forced union states, stating that right-to-work states pay more. Now, if we also want to break this down to statistics, which was quoted earlier by Mr. O'Brien, about wage differences, if you talk to the Bureau of Labor Statistics in non-union jobs, their average salaries raised 14.6% compared to 11% wage increase on unionized workers from 2020 to 2023. If you go back to the percentage of union workers, because if unions was working so well, then you'd see an increase in union jobs, not a decrease. 50 years ago, 33.
So he's just cherry picking stats. I don't know. I didn't verify all his claims there. But this whole notion that, well, gee, why are union jobs going down when you say they're so good? It's because there's a massive massive institutional resistance and a decades-long project to upend and misinform and mislead people. Well, why do you think people are turning to unions finally? Because there aren't that many other ways to stand up to these motherfuckers. We had to do that at TYT. We had to stand up for ourselves. There was some shit going on that we needed to deal with. And, that's why we started the union there. Exactly the same thing that's happening on larger scales at bigger companies. It's a story that needs to be told. But But this, let me just rewind it a little bit, where he's making the point. This is such a lazy thing to say. That well, gee, if unions' jobs are so good, then how come they're going down? Blah, blah.
This was working so well, then you'd see an increase in union jobs, not a decrease. 50 years ago, 33% of our labor force was union. Today, it's 10.1%. If you go back and you start looking at wage earned, if you actually compare comparable wages to ages, not a partisan point, but you go to all wages earned, not just comparing 16 and over to 54 to 64-year-old ages, you'll see that the actual average, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistic, that if you subtract the union dues, it's actually higher. Non-union employees are getting paid by roughly 1 to 2%, which is exactly what union dues are, is 1 to 2% of their salary.
Okay, so somehow he's trying to say that the union dues actually cost union people so much money that they make 1 to 2% less than if they were not union. I'm sure this guy's ideologically committed to being against the union. He's a right-wing fucking freak from Oklahoma, and a boss, and a scoundrel. So none of this is to be trusted.
So I just wanted to set the record straight on that, and that's coming from statistics. All right, now let's talk.
That's just coming from statistics. Now he switches over to the aggressive stuff. He needed to get out his bullshit talking points, and now he's going to switch into being a big, tough, strong guy. He's a big, strong man.
About Mr. O'Brien himself, his behavior. As everybody knows, and it's here in the last time, him and I kind of had a back and forth. Appreciate your demeanor today. It's quite different. But after you left here, you got pretty excited about the keyboard. In fact, you tweeted at me 1, 2.
He's got printed tweets.
3, 4, 5 times. And let me read what the last one said. It said, greedy CEO who pretends like he's self-made.
God damn it, why is the video getting stalled? What the fuck?
Greedy CEO who pretends like he's self-made. Sir, I wish you was in the truck with me when I was building my plumbing company myself.
Why is it doing this?
Let me read what the last one said. Like he's self-made.
Sorry, this is really irritating. It doesn't really matter, but...
Times. And let me read what the last one said. It said, greedy CEO who pretends like he's self-made. Sir, I wish you was in the truck with me when I was building my plumbing company myself and my...
Remember that. I wish you were in the truck with me when I was building my plumbing company myself. Remember that phrase. I'll just give you the payoff. He inherited his plumbing company at age 20 from his father.
Wife was running the office because I sure remember working pretty hard and long hours. Pretends like he's self-made. What a clown. Fraud. Always has been, always will be. Quit the tough guy act in these Senate hearings. You know where to find me. Any place, anytime, cowboy. Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big guy.
Oh, stop it.
Look
Is that
at
your
that.
solution every poll?
No, sit down.
Sit down.
Okay. You know, you're a United States.
He's right next to Bernie, by the way. The funny thing, that's Bernie's hand. They're sitting really close to each other.
Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
All right.
Can I respond? Mr.
Hold
Chairman?
it. Hold it.
And then it becomes this whole thing, this kind of macho bullshit of like, you stand up, like this whole kind of like there's cobras in the world that when they challenge each other for breeding domination of their little area, cobra sex here, they wrestle. They don't actually bite each other and fuck each other up. They do like this weird dance, and then one of them will end up winning and pin the other one down. And like you do that successfully as a cobra, guess what? The other one has to say, all right, you beat me. I'm going to go fuck off, and I won't get to have sex with the lady cobras for now. All right, I'll go try somewhere else. You know, we've all been there, right? Wrigleyville, 2009, 2008. What the fuck am I saying? Humans have a version of that where the kind of tough guy shit, but it does escalate into fighting. How is this supposed to play out? This fucking dumbass. He's here in the white shirt. Here's O'Brien, shiny bald head over here. Markwayne looks like he's in pretty decent shape. I mean, I don't know who would win the fight, honestly. Yes, I mean, I'm curious to see how that would go down. I would say they should do it on a MMA stage. Maybe Jank can fight Joe Rogan That would be a fun one to watch. Joe Rogan give Cenk Uygur a limp. Not that I'd think. I mean, that's what I think it would end. I don't want anybody to get hurt, but why would you want to get your ass kicked by Joe Rogan? That's such a weird. Anyway, that's a different topic. Maybe, but this could be the undercard, or that could be the undercard. Although Joe Rogan's famous, so people will probably want to see him later on. But what was he supposed to do? Was Markwayne going to jump off this? Was he going to walk around and they were just going to have a fight here in the Senate room? I mean, that would have been great entertainment, no matter which side of the political aisle or wherever you fall on the ideology spectrum. I don't know. Maybe they could compete in other ways, though. Billy Madison style, you know?
If
Hold
we
on.
can, no,
This is
I have
what
the
he
mic.
said.
I'm sorry.
This is
Hold
what
it.
he said.
You'll have your time.
Okay.
Can I respond?
Oh, no, you can't. This is a hearing. And God knows the American people have enough of contempt for Congress. Let's not
I don't
make
like
it worse.
thugs and
You-
bullies.
You have,
And that's
you
what-
I
have
don't
the
like
mic.
you because you
Hold
just
it.
described yourself.
Hold it. You have the mic.
Yeah.
You have time.
All right.
Make your statement.
Then let's do this, because I did challenge you and I accepted your challenge, and you went quiet.
No, I didn't go quiet. I was.
Hold on.
No,
You challenged me to a cage match,
No,
acting
no,
like a
sir.
12-year-old schoolyard
Hold it.
bully.
Excuse me.
Hold on.
Hold it.
He's
No,
got
excuse
that
me.
Boston accent, doesn't he, huh? Schoolyard bully.
I will say exactly.
Senator
what he
Mullin,
said.
I have the mic. You have questions on any economic issues, anything that said, go for it. We're not here to talk about physical abuse.
You brought.
We're not
him
talking
in.
about.
We're here to talk about financial abuse only, not physical abuse. Congress, the Senate, we do financial abuse. We hurt people with economic policies.
Of course, I
And
did.
let me show you his hearing, because I want to expose this thug to who he is. And
Could you not point at me? That's disrespectful.
I don't care about respecting you at all. I respect.
don't
people
respect
that I
you at all.
respect. So
All right, hold it.
let me
Hold it. No,
You're one of
no,
100
hold
of the
it.
most
Hold
elite
it,
people.
please.
Act it.
Please. All right? This is excuse me. This is a hearing to discuss economic issues. All right? If you have questions for Mr. O'Brien,
Like doing this at this meeting is just classic guy who wants to fight, who knows his friends aren't going to let him fight. You know, oh, fight, but he knows absolutely that there's no way that any fight's going to happen here. I hate fighting. I've been in a couple of little scraps. I've had not been any big ones. I don't believe in fair fighting, honestly. Like if you fuck with me, I'm going to fucking hurt you hard. I don't necessarily want to kill somebody. I hate violence. I'm imagining a lot of violence right now, and it's stressing me out. This is all annoying and stupid and embarrassing as a society. But if you're going to actually try to fight the guy, you go up to him in a place where a fight can happen. He's literally in a place where it's impossible for a fight to break out. At least confront him somewhere where it's possible. If you actually do want to push that. I mean, human beings are like these 200-pound gorillas that have these battles, and humans are scary animals. I don't, on the whole, I like talking about this, but like most, a lot of not most, but there's plenty of huge, scary predator animals in the world, and one human on their own is pretty weak. But human versus human, and you've got a whole different, that could be worth. What am I trying to do? I don't know what I'm saying.
or anybody else.
So let's see some coverage of this. Sorry, I'm just Coco 5 News.
Shut up.
Oh, hold on.
Big
No,
guy.
no, stop it.
Is that your solution every
Hold it. No, sit down. Sit down.
It was a heated exchange today on Capitol Hill between Senator Markwayne Mullin and Teamster boss Sean O'Brien.
He's not a boss, but unions don't have bosses. That's not at all. He's the president. He's the leader. You could say he's democratically accountable to the. That's not that she knows she's doing that, but that's like anti-union propaganda is to call the union bosses, because they know we don't like bosses. They're supposed to be against that whole fucking thing, and the bosses are the issue in the world. We need to end the era of employerism and bossism and have leaders who make decisions that are and they're held democratically accountable in a society and an economy that functions to produce dignity for everybody, not just wealth for the fucking bosses. So they use that word intentionally. I don't think she's doing that. It's just a very common thing to say, like, duh, union boss. Like, that's a very common phrase.
This happened during a Senate committee hearing on the condition of American workers.
And joining us live right
It would have been fun if Bernie and Markwayne Mullin got into it. You know, like it just kept going. Like Bernie's hands go in front of him a little bit because Bernie sticks his arms out, and then the guy like pushes his hand away, and then Bernie and him have a scrap, and Bernie just fucking wrecks him. Just goes a total like anime crazy on him.
right now is Senator
Lightning.
Mullin.
Oh, they
Senator,
got him.
appreciate you taking the time to talk with us this afternoon. Let's get
Absolutely.
right into it here. What exactly happened today, and what is this feud between you two all about?
Well, last summer, him and I had a conversation in a hearing, and it got pretty heated at that time because the guy's a thug. I mean, he's an absolute thug. He said he wanted to bring back the mobster mentality to the Teamsters. He's been in trouble multiple times with the law for harassment. He's been expelled from the Teamsters before for harassing own members. And after our hearing last time, he kept tweeting at me. He kept going 5 or 6 times. His last tweet, though, he said I was a clown and a fraud, and that I was despicable and all this stuff. But then he said, you know where to find me anytime, any place, cowboy. Well, I responded back to him at the time and challenged him to an MMA fight for charity, September 30th. He never responded to me. Well, coming back into this, the conversation got heated again. I read his tweet to him, and he called me out and said, anytime, any place. And listen, from Oklahoma, being raised in Oklahoma all life, you don't do that. You don't go run off the mouth unless you expect to be called to the carpet. And I did that.
We have the same rule in Illinois. What the hell? Why is Oklahoma taking our manhood rules? I hear they have the same rule in Wisconsin. I like when people cite the place they're from. Like, we don't do that kind of stuff down in Texas. You don't treat us like that out there in Massachusetts. We don't do that kind of thing in Western Washington State. Washington State is very divided. The eastern side is the liberals, the liberal hippie lefties, and the right side is like this, the desert dwelling conservatives. It's basically Star Wars where they go those guys. They live. What? I'm joking. I'm totally kidding around. I've driven through it a few times though. I lived in Washington for a little while. It's like a big desert. Half of Washington. You think of the Northwest as being a rainforest, which it is, but it's also a desert. It's a big old desert on the western side of Washington State. It's kind of interesting. What did I say?
I don't think he was wanting to receive that because he's just not used to being called out. I think the guy's really tough on a keyboard, but that's about it.
Dude, you did it at a place where you couldn't fight him. You did it behind a Senate
And Senator
thing, dais. I don't know what they call that shit. Like, it's amazing. And he might have training. If he knows MMA stuff, he might win a fight. It wouldn't make the union movement less. I mean, I don't want this to escalate to a fight. I think that would be absurd.
help us understand here. So during this exchange, at one point, you said, we can finish it here. And
I
then
like her color choice. She's wearing a very bold green business news lady suit.
you stood up. So what
Right.
exactly did you mean by that? And were you planning to do something?
Absolutely. There was no problem with that. He was an adult. I was an adult. We both agreed to it. In a Senate, that's not uncommon. Member Andrew Jackson had 9 duels. And when he was
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Andrew Jackson had 9 duels, he says. That proves that they would have been fine to do that in a Senate hearing. So stupid. I got to pause for a break. Got to run an errand. I'll be back and we'll get back to it. Okay. I'm back. Let's keep going.
was president and finished all 9 of them. He also knocked a guy out in a dinner at the White House. There's been multiple duels and multiple canings that's taken place in the Senate.
Oh yeah, he was talking about Andrew Jackson, and I don't know the history of the violence in the Senate, but maybe you've opened up the wrong portal when your United States senator, who is on one of the 100 most powerful people. I know that's a simplification, but senators are very powerful people. 2 per state. California gets 2. Dakotas get. We should unite the Dakota. I think we should just and that he's going on local news or on news to defend his attempt to start a brawl during a Senate hearing by citing previous times. And he's going back a couple of 100 years to when the psychos who were senators back then with their thick wool petticoats, I don't know how they dressed really, with their fancy lad wool hats, with their wigs and their nice little doily leggings with their schoolgirl stockings up to their knees. When they were smacking each other around with powdered guns, meaning powder fired rifle and handguns. What are they fucking called, those things? And canes and battles. I just totally just like farted out that thought. None of that made any sense.
That sometimes, every now and then, you just need to be called out on it. And this guy, he's a thug, and he wanted to continue to do what he said he was going to do. He just didn't expect I'd call him out on it. And absolutely, if we were able to finish it, we would have finished it.
Well,
There you go. There's a healthy display of conflict resolution and masculinity and American jurisprudence and responsible adult behavior. Is this guy who deliberately chose to try to fight a dude to just sitting next to Bernie Sanders because he's a senator behind a giant wooden desk. Is it called that a dais? I don't know, whatever. A hearing room, a very important kind of official room where it would have been impossible for him to get into a fight. The chances of that ending up with those guys, they both would have had to have leapt over their tables and just met in the middle, and then a bunch of other people would have jumped on him and, pulled him up. I don't know. It wasn't going to happen. And he's sitting there acting like he's the tough guy.
Senator, we tell our kids so often, do not resort to violence. You are one of the most powerful men in the country, challenging someone that you disagree with to a fight at the U.S. Senate. How do you justify that?
Well, fights happen. Boys are boys. I raised 6 kids. I got 3 boys, 3 girls, and every now and then they're going to get in a fight. They're going to get in a fight at home too. And it's not, it's not something we encourage, but it's going to happen.
So the fact that his children are violent is a reason why it's okay for this fucking loser to try to start violence at a Senate hearing. I'm not singling out his kids. Yes, children get into physical altercations. I think that's unfortunately a fairly normal thing in our world. We could probably minimize that in a better society. I don't think it eliminated ever, really. Animal's going to animal, right? But that is not exactly a great justification. He could have just said, I was defending myself, and like people would have kind of understood that one. That one makes more sense than, well, my kids get in fights. What kind of answer is
I
that?
used to fight professionally, so I'm not looking for a fight. I'm not mad at the guy.
Professionally?
He just said something that he needed to be answered for. What was I supposed to do? Sit there and ignore it? That's not how I am. That's not how I raise my kids.
He didn't raise his kids to be nonviolent. He raised them to be violent. You don't back down.
You got to be responsible for your words. And if you're going to say it, then you need to own it. And that's what I tell my kids all the time. If you're going to do something, then you need to own it, regardless if it's a good success or if it's a mistake. Own it. And that's all I was doing. I was making him own his words.
Well, Senator Bernie Sanders broke up the exchange, and he said Americans already have enough contempt for Congress. Do you agree with that? And if so, how do you change that?
Well, this had nothing to do with Congress. This has to do with 2 adults. And if this guy wants to have a cup of coffee afterwards, that's fine. I fought guys professionally in the cage before that I'm friends with. I competed in wrestling and jiu-jitsu my whole life. And it's no hard feelings. It's just sometimes things happen. And at the end of it, we can shake hands like adults and we can settle our differences at that point. If the guy truly wants to sit down and have a cup of coffee, let's talk about our differences here. But I'm not going to allow him to do what he did. He's a bully, and he continues to bully. What do you expect? A guy that says he wants to bring back the mob mentality, we're supposed to ignore that. A guy that says anytime, any place, I'm supposed to ignore that. That's not how I was raised, and that's not what we do in Oklahoma.
Well, your parents did a bad job raising you, Markwayne Mullin, or whatever the fuck your name is. Markwayne Mullin. Your parents raised, I'm not saying that you'd never back down, but this is a highly inappropriate, completely deranged behavior at the status that this dude is at as a senator. That's when he's just acting like I get it. Sometimes things escalate to a point where you're required to be physical, but there's also the option to not do that. That's another way. That's another way to approach things. You don't necessarily always have to initiate. He instigated this. It's just, I'm not a pacifist. I'll definitely defend myself if I have to. If this guy has jiu-jitsu and he's done MMA competition, he's probably pretty difficult to defeat. That's all the more reason why he should have more responsibility about his abilities if he does actually have training. Training always trumps even most toughness. So if you don't have training and you're against a guy who does have training, you either have to get really lucky or just have some sort of major physical advantage that they just can't overcome, or a combination of the two. But training trumps everything. Like me, I don't know, this is all just gross talk anyway, but if I fight a guy my size and neither of us have training, I'm going to bet on me just because I have a high pain tolerance and I'm fucking crazy, I will go absolutely batshit nuts. Right? That's just how I'll do it. But someone my size or smaller, although not all the way smaller, but smaller than me, and they have a little training, I'm in for. I'm done. I'm gonna get whooped. Training makes a big difference, especially having already scrapped and been punched a few times. Like Peter, I mean, there's a huge difference there, and that's why violence is so gross to me. It's just I'm stressing myself out just idly fantasizing or idly contemplating the idea.
Senator O'Brien called you an embarrassment to Oklahoma during the exchange. A lot of people online are obviously talking about this. It's getting national attention. What do you have to say about what happened there?
It'd be funny if you offered to fight the guy for saying that. Oh yeah, you want to fight me there, Coco 5 News guy, ABC?
It happened. I didn't start it.
Yes, you did.
I absolutely did not start it. I didn't go after him.
He brought it back up this time. He didn't. He literally went out of his way to start it. Today, he's claiming that the first time was what started it. He was just finishing. This is humiliating. What a fucking nightmare society that produces human beings like Markwayne and puts them in power. That's the really embarrassing part about our culture.
But at the end of the day, I don't think anything's going to come out about it. But I bet you I bet you he learned a lesson. Not to run out the mouth, at least towards me. He may be able to do it to other people, but not towards me anymore.
Senator Markwayne Mullin, we sure do appreciate your time. And you said,
Thank you.
He invited you to coffee, that you're up for that. So keep us posted on that, and perhaps you guys will be able to resolve this.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Here is again. This is all probably just terrible. Let's just go.
Yes, sir. Senator, just tell us why you.
I want to back up because I know he walks up here as if he's.
We already talked. Yes, sir. Senator, just tell us why you think what happened today in the hearing happened.
Well, you should probably ask him that. I mean, he's the one that kept tweeting at us. We didn't respond until the 5th tweet, and when he said any place or any time,
We didn't respond until we were egged on into it because we're immature and impulsive bullies.
place, where to find me, cowboy. I thought, well, this is the time, this is the place, and you don't do that in Oklahoma. You don't run your mouth unless you're going to answer the call.
Well,
Yeah, that's right. This Senate hearing room next to Bernie Sanders is the time and the place. I mean, technically, he's not wrong. It is a time and a place. It really narrows it down. Well, he said he wants to fight me somewhere in the cosmos. I mean, we are in the cosmos, technically. You ever think about how life is just this entropic amalgamation of information concentrated into a temporary vessel that we call life, that is truly probably the most rare thing to exist in the entire cosmos, the self-awareness of the universe being aware of itself, recognizing the imperative of love and joy that can be exchanged between animals and harmonized between creatures living together. Do you ever think about that? Well, let's fight me, motherfucker. Come on, I did it before.
that might be the question. Was that the place? Is a Senate hearing the right place to challenge someone to a physical confrontation?
Well, I'd already challenged him to September 30th. He could have done it then for charity. I said April. They have the what's called the smoking guns charity for the firefighters.
Like wouldn't you get fired in most jobs if you just stood up at a meeting and were like, "Oh, you want to fight me? Let's fight. Let's have a fight." That'll at least set off a major HR thing, right? Doesn't that get looked into? Wouldn't you usually get fired? I mean, at most jobs, if you threaten to fight somebody, like, doesn't that kind of escalate, especially like these important, prestigious, high status roles, such as a United States senator? Like this isn't just some fucking drunk guy at the riding at the mechanical bull convention after a few too many Schlitz pops, working himself up into a froth. What am I thinking of? A frother?
We could have done it then. I've been happy to, but he said stand up, and so I stood up.
Yeah, but what about, just the idea that fighting as a way to solve a problem, is that are you concerned that that's the way the conversation is happening here on Capitol Hill?
People's been fighting for a long time. I mean, go back to the 1800s. They used to have canings. It was legal to do duels.
Yeah, there was a famous Senate incident where a guy beat a guy with a cane real hard. I even remember learning about that, but I don't know anything else. There's more information to be had. That's a great answer. I like I like that he's thought this through. He's like, well, I know I'm going to be asked about, is it okay to be a violent fucking maniac. And well, the truth is that someone a couple hundred years ago was a violent fucking maniac. So yeah, people have been fighting a long time.
If you have a difference, you have a difference. I didn't
People have been wiping their butt with leaves forever there, buddy. Should we do that? Yes. We call it toilet paper, which is just like processed leaves.
start it. I didn't tweet at him. I didn't go after him. I have no beef with the guy. I mean, I don't even know the last time I've gotten a street fight.
I never even think about him. I don't think about the guy that I tried to start a fight with because I'm a fucking emotionally underdeveloped maniac whose parents did a terrible job raising him. Because look at me, I can barely control my emotions and my anger and my rage. And this society's rewarded me with millions and millions and millions of dollars of ill-gotten gains.
To get paid to fight. I'm not looking. I mean, what victory is it for me to beat up O'Brien? That would be a shock, right?
I mean, yeah. If he's like an MMA fighter, those dudes are fucking scary as shit. They can hurt you bad. They just know how to choke you and break your fingers and stuff. Like, why would you be proud of that? Like a football player who's like, yeah, I'll tackle a guy who doesn't have my abilities. I mean, Sean O'Brien looks like a pretty tough guy himself. I would imagine it'd be an interesting fight. But if you know MMA, like it's very MMA is like highly refined martial art. Like it's like I don't think there's much past MMA in terms of the human ability to like fight. Like yes, over time there will be evolutions of that, but it synthesizes all of that other stuff. And from what I can tell, like getting in and getting close and grappling is where differences are generally made. Obviously, yes, launching fists, limb-based attacks, not just grappling. What am I trying to do?
But he said it. And I just simply responded. If he wants to call it off and we just go have a cup of coffee, fine, let's sit down and have a cup of coffee. I have no hard feelings. It's not personal to me. He just challenged me, and I accepted the challenge.
Do you regret this moment at all?
You should probably ask him. I mean, he's the one that said it. I don't regret asking him. You know, he said anytime, any place. So.
And has leadership talked to you at all about this?
No, not at all.
Have you done any?
No. I'm just a very important person in the world, and I get paid a lot of money by by taxpayers. And of course, the leadership of my party wouldn't at all address this with me. Of course not. Why would they? What is this? What is this? A place of employment? A place of the what is this? The Citadel of Liberty? Of course, I wouldn't have a conversation with my superiors about the fact that I am a violent maniac trying to pick fights. I just love the idea that Bernie Sanders goes into like Street Fighter, some kind of like crazy mode where he just starts whooping ass.
Have at all, or has he reached out to you, O'Brien meaning?
No.
Reached out to you afterwards?
No, not. You know, I ended it and said, if you want to end it here, that's fine. You want to sit down and have a cup of coffee, I'll sit down and have a cup of coffee. It's not personal to me, guys. This is nothing personal. It's just he made the challenge, and I accepted it. It's just that simple.
What about just the general tension right now on Capitol Hill? Do you feel as though there's more angst than there has been at other times, and is it preventing you from getting things done?
I don't, I can only speak for my time here, right? Ever since I've been here, there's always been a little bit of tension. This is a total separate.
Oh, except for when he speaks about the other times other people were violent. I can only speak for my time here, except he also will spend his time explaining the other times of other people being violent, the caning and the when they did duels. I like. That is funny. Is there a logical fallacy or somewhere? Is there one of those fallacies that you could apply that to? The violence el reducto or whatever the fuck, some word, when you're talking about how, well, in the early 1800s, some guy got fucking caned real hard and they used to get into like gun battles. Obviously that means I'm correct.
Separate issue. This doesn't have to do with policy. This doesn't have to do with politics. This had to do with the guy calling me out, and I simply responded to it. So I don't think the two are really comparable. This has nothing to do with me against unions either. I have nothing against unions. I made that very clear at the end of the hearing. I have nothing against unions. A lot of good friends and family are union members. This has to do with just his thug mentality. I mean, look at his background. Look at his history. The guy has a history of this constantly. I mean, he was the one after he became president. He was the one to bring back the mob mentality. What the heck is a mob mentality? And then you're going to bring that mob mentality to me? Okay, well, you can't run your mouth against me. I'm just not that guy. If you want to run your mouth, then we can settle it a different way. But you don't do that. And for especially somebody from Oklahoma, maybe you can do that from someone from New Jersey or New York. I don't know. I've never lived there. But in Oklahoma,
don't piss off the New Jerseys and the New Yorkans, okay? The New Jerseys and the New Yorkers will go to war, man. I've seen most television shows and movies. Okay, there. That is the truth. I just love that. I want like a region of the country, like a state where they're like, well, just being from Wyoming, we're just fucking, we're little sissy boys. Oh, just Wyoming, we just can't do it. Like if some of them, one unique spot that just owned it, that they didn't want to do any of the other honor-based sort of violent machismo stuff that every other place is. I mean, hell, California, people think California's still, I've seen people in California. Sons of Anarchy is based in California, motherfucker. You know what that means? Tough guys. There's tough guys everywhere is my point. We're the tough guy society. We have to be. They're the ones who usually the news gets made about. They don't make stories about dudes that are just getting through things and being okay about it all. All right?
You don't do that. It's the same thing. You don't flip somebody off unless you want to get your finger broken in Oklahoma. That's just the way it happens. Here,
That's right. That's right. Oklahoma is well known as the finger broken state. If you flip someone off, broken finger. Honor, baby.
people seem to use that gesture all the time, and it's not the same. Words matter in Oklahoma.
There were some tips also on the House side today. And more broadly, what do you think could be done to like lower the temperature?
Yeah,
and bring more discourse here.
That old stuff with Burchett and Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, so he's referring to intra GOP thing. This guy, I was going to do a whole thing about it, but this guy like got elbowed in the back by Kevin McCarthy, which is a real scoundrel thing to do. And then he went on interview or some reporter and he like detailed it all. And I guess they're like going at it each other some more. So real great, real good kind of. So it's healthy. It's really reassuring that these are the human beings who plinko the machine their way all the way to the top or the bottom. Oh God, I've mixed my metaphors again. And get to call the shots for the rest of us. That's fine. That's fun. And I know Plinko's not really a machine. I'd call it a device.
Birch is not a man of character, and I don't take that I take what he said with not even a grain of salt. I don't believe a word that he says.
And do you feel confident that once this continuing resolution, if it ultimately passes, I mean, you're not really solving any of the problems, right?
No.
I mean, how can you get all this stuff done?
All right, enough of this fucking asshole. Although, I mean, of that video, I've got a hell of a lot more, actually. So here's the Hill. I'm not going to just read this all. You've already seen all this stuff. This paragraph here, Mullin, who owned non-union plumbing companies before selling his majority stakes in 2021, accused union leaders of engaging in intimidation tactics in an effort to unionize his company so they could pay themselves exorbitant salaries. I jumped into the middle of that. Sorry, kind of. Yeah. We hold, this is quoting, we hold greedy CEOs like yourself accountable, O'Brien responded. You want to attack my salary? I'll attack yours. What did you make when you owned your company? Mullin, who had a net worth ranging between $31.6 million. Boy, that's a lot of plumbing income. Just driving around in the truck while your wife does the office stuff, huh? It's just that simple. Or maybe you had workers. Maybe you're a fucking parasite that required other people to show up and do the work so that and fill your bank account with money off the labor of others, the non-unionized labor of others. And between 31.6 and 75.6 million in 2020, according to personal financial disclosures analyzed by Oklahoma newspaper Tulsa World, said that he kept his salary to around $50,000 to invest more money into his company. Somehow he only earned $50,000, yet the net worth is above 31 million. That seems weird. That sounds a bunch of fucking bullshit right there. That sounds like capitalists cheating the system, or I should say good business, as we like to call that. You mean you hid money, O'Brien said, prompting visible outrage from Mullin. This must have been, when was this? Oh, so this is from the March incident. Okay. I am terrible at this. I totally fucked up this whole podcast by switching to this article. This is earlier. God damn it. I'm so sorry. I did mean to switch back to this. So here's the earlier incident, just for context.
Is that they are the authentic voice
By the way, this is everybody's favorite ex-boyfriend, Chris Hayes.
of the working class against the woke elite.
Your parents just wish you'd get back together with that Chris H. boy. Wouldn't that be nice? Whatever happened to him? He was so nice.
It's an illusion that conveniently obscures the actual class and material interests at play. The GOP remains reliably a party wholly devoted to the bosses. We got to watch this whole narrative implode on itself in real time today in Washington. The president of the Teamsters was testifying before the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, and Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma, who used to own a plumbing company, tried to grandstand.
Union pipe fitters decided they were going to come after us. They would show up at my house. They'd be leaning up against my trucks. I'm not afraid of a physical confrontation. In fact, sometimes I look forward to it. When that didn't work, they started picketing.
What a maniac. This guy's a dangerous person.
Our job site saying, shame on Mullin. Shame on Mullin. For what? For what? Because we were paying higher wages? Because we had better benefits and we was
That's what union guys do. Union guys like to go to senators' houses and then yell at people because they pay their workers nice benefits and wages. That's exactly it. That's why Markwayne
requiring them to pay your guys' exorbitant salaries. You talk about CEOs that are making all this money, and what do you make, Mr. O'Brien?
So he's leaning hard into the right-wing trope. I've seen Cenk Uygur do this too, of going after the leadership of unions, saying that that's the reason why you can't trust unions and stuff like that, and having issues with the fact that there are these are huge organizations and the leaders often make a few $100,000 or more. That's not small. These are big things. These is, tens of thousands of people. So he's leaning on that. This is like a union kind of avoidance, union bust. Like you'll get this stuff from union avoidance consultants and specialists and stuff like that.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question.
Yeah, I know what you make, because in 2019, your salary was, what is this, $193,000? I'm sure you got some pay raises since then.
Yeah, when I was a
And the average UPS driver, the feeder driver, makes $35,000 a year. And what do you bring?
That's inaccurate.
Hold on a second.
That's inaccurate. State
I've got
facts.
it right here.
State facts. That's inaccurate.
The average UPS feeder driver makes $35,000. If you don't know your facts, then maybe you should.
I know them because I negotiate the contract.
So I say one thing to you. What do you bring for that salary?
What do I bring?
Yeah. What job have you committed, or have you started? What job have you created? One job, other than sucking a paycheck out of somebody else that you want to say that you're trying to provide because you're forcing them to pay dues?
No, we don't force them.
Senator, you've asked the question.
You're out of line.
Let him answer
Actually,
the
I haven't,
question.
and don't tell me I'm out.
You are out of line.
Don't tell me I'm out of line.
Well, you frame.
Don't tell me. I'm making a statement.
You
Sir,
frame the statement
you need
like
to
a
shut
tough
your
guy.
mouth
Yeah.
because you don't know
You're
what
gonna
you're
tell me to shut
talking
my
about.
mouth?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
Hold it.
Yeah.
Hold it.
Tough guy. I'm not
Senator,
afraid of physical.
Senator,
Don't have
hold
to be,
it.
but don't sit there and tell me I'm out of line.
Senator, you made a statement. You asked the question.
I didn't ask a question.
You did.
I answered the question.
You asked the question. About how
Well, it was
money you made.
rhetorical.
Let him answer.
It was a rhetorical
Well,
question.
you may think it's rhetorical.
It was
Sounded to me
rhetorical.
like a question. Let him answer the question.
I'm not yielding my time to him. So if you're going to let me keep my time, that's fine.
You'll have your time. Let him. You ask
Your
a question. He has the right to answer that.
As far as my salary goes, my salary.
Did Bernie think he'd be babysitting a deranged MMA guy during this? Like that's the Senate comity that we've all come to trust and appreciate.
If you follow me around, I actually look at this building. I bet you I work more hours than you do. Twice as many hours.
That's impossible. But
No, that's true.
Sir, you don't know what hard work is. You wanna follow my schedule,
Secondly, I'll do it in a
follow.
minute.
That's
we
not-
hold greedy CEOs
That's
like yourself
not-
accountable.
You call me a greedy CEO.
Oh, yeah, you are. You want to attack my salary, I'll attack yours. What
go
did you
ahead.
make? What did you make when you owned your company?
When I made my company, I kept my salary down at about $50,000 a year because I invested every penny into it.
Liar. How did he get tens of millions of dollars?
Okay.
I know he sold it, but no, whatever his salary, whatever accounting trickery these guys use with their fancy accountants, it's such bullshit. Does he actually think people believe that? That shows disdain for people, for his voters, for Oklahomans who he thinks will buy this fucking bullshit.
All right. You mean you hid money?
No, I didn't hide. Hold on a second.
Okay, go.
He said that's out of line.
That was the moment that his honor was wounded, and now he's on a quest to bring it all back. Hope he doesn't watch this video. He would win the fight. I'm not saying I would beat him up. I would not, unless it's a Rocket League fight, in which case I'll get him, or maybe like a stand-up comedy battle.
You said
All right,
I was out.
we're even.
We're not even. We're not even close to being even.
Oh, there's a threat.
Yeah, you made $50,000. You hid money. Now, former company owner Markwayne Mullin knows perfectly well the salary is not the full picture of CEO compensation. Here's an example. Jeff Bezos. Know that guy, right? You know what his base salary has been? Stated just over $81,000 a year from 1998 into this decade, but he is, of course, one of the, if not the wealthiest men on earth. According to the Tulsa World newspaper, Markwayne Mullin is also doing pretty well himself. Quote, Mullin saw his reported assets balloon from somewhere between $7.3 to $29.9 million at the end of 2020 to a range, that was a starting range, between $31.6 to $75.6 million at the end of 2021. Hardly the asset declaration of a working stiff.
Got him. Got him. All right. Next one here is same deal, Guardian. I think this is just him talking. I don't think we need to watch all this again. Oh, this is a whole different event. This is where he's being a real dipshit to some teachers and some like education people. I'll just click play. Fuck it. We'll just see what happens.
I have a book here in front of me called Our Skin that has been endorsed by NACI. And I'm going to read exactly what this book says. You guys might find it interesting. A long time ago, way before you were born, a group of white people made up an idea called race. They sorted people by skin color and said that white people were better, smarter, prettier, and they deserved more than everybody else.
I've met a lot of white people. I've known white people since I was a baby. In fact, I've only mostly known white people. Not better, smarter, or prettier. I'll definitely tell you that much. No, this is the origins of colonialism and colonization, and he's terrified that children will learn the truth of how this country or how this planet has been wrecked by white people, by European, the ideology of division and extraction and colonialism that flowed with tremendous violence, using technology that was, they had shipping, their boats were better, they got better at driving around the world, and they traveled around and they mugged the entire fucking planet, and they coordinated with each other to keep the wars to a minimum, and they fucking savaged the future by wrecking whole continents with genocidal policies. Look up King Leopold of Belgium, and the tens of millions of people. I think roughly 10 million people wiped out in the Congo in the 1800s. The amount of wealth stolen from India during British colonial rule was something like estimated around 45 trillion. I don't have the number in my brain right now, but the amount of wealth produced by forced workers, by slaves, by black people in America is trillions of dollars of wealth that they generated for their captors. All in service of, all built on the back of the kind of stuff that they're talking about in this book.
This would be taught if we socialize our pre-K system. This would be taught.
Do you disagree with that findings in the book?
1,000%. How about we teach Jesus loves me? How about this?
There you go. Yeah, it shouldn't say that white people came up with this concept of race and then used it to impose themselves on the entire planet through all that. It should have taught that Jesus loves us. You know, that white guy Jesus, the Palestinian dude who happened to be a hot white blonde guy with blue eyes. I don't know if they make him blonde. They usually give him like light brown hair in the portraits that they put on the walls. That's just so fucking weird.
And teaching Jesus loves the little children. The lyrics go, red and yellow, black and white, they're all precious in our sight. Now, which one would you think would be better? I'll ask everybody on the panel, which is better to teach? This?
What a dumbass. Okay, next one here is Shut Your Mouth, Senator Confronts. This is March 9th, 2023. So this is the same incident. I did group up these tabs.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I want to make it very clear, I'm not against unions. I'm not at all. Some of my very good friends work for unions.
That's always the thing you say before you are about to say something anti-union. He's a Republican senator. Think he's for unions? You think he hasn't voted or hasn't only ever done things to increase the leverage for bosses, to make the world easier for bosses to have leverage over workers? As I always say, everything always comes down to leverage. no matter what the scenario is, does this policy contain leverage or expand leverage for workers? And these fucking right-wing populist types, I'm not even sure if I'd call him that. He pretends to be. Like all these guys like to act like they just driving around in my truck, making money, working real hard with my wife at home. It's just us too. How did you get millions and millions and millions of dollars? Because of other people's labor. That's fucking how. I don't care a shit about the rest of that one. So here's the part where Mark, the tweet from a article here, commondreams.org, friends of the show. Class war erupts at hearing as union leader and GOP senator exchange verbal blows. Thank you, God, for the word verbal. What if it just said blows? I would have been like, oh boy. Oh, am I old enough to watch that? Don't let them distract you, said Teamsters President Sean O'Brien. Unions create jobs, make work safer, and put more money in workers' pockets. Kenny Stansel, March 8th, 2023. But this links to the tweets that the guy sent out. So here's Sean O'Brien's tweet. For the record, Senator Mullin saw his reported assets balloon from a range of 7.3 to 29.9 at the end of 2020 into a range of 31.6 to 75 million. I know there's a whole bunch of stuff about how he sold his businesses, and I've got a ton of articles. Honestly, I kind of wanted to read them all and get them all fucking in my head and spit it all out in perfect summarized words, but I'm just kind of going to muddle through this and poke around. That's all I can muster these days. In 1997, at age 20, Mullin took over his father's business, Mullin Plumbing, when his father fell ill. In 2010, Mullin received an associate's degree in construction technology from Oklahoma State University Institute of Technology. He's the only currently serving senator without at least a bachelor's degree. That's fine. I'm not going to dog him for that. I think we could do with more people who aren't hoity-toity college graduate types. So he got his business from his dad. This is generational wealth, you know. Business Insider Senator Markwayne Mullin ran a multi-million-dollar plumbing business and claimed he only took a $50,000 salary. His financial statements show otherwise. So he's a liar. He's a fucking lying scoundrel. While lambasting Teamsters President Sean O'Brien for his nearly $200,000 salary, Oklahoma's Senator Markwayne Mullin claimed that he paid himself a salary of just $50,000 when he ran a plumbing business, but his financial disclosure shows his salary was nearly $92,000. Why not just say $92,000? That doesn't sound insane for someone who owns a business. In 2012, the year he was first elected to Congress, his total income was even greater. So we see a little bit of the exchange here. Yeah, here he is. Here he is saying, I started with nothing. Absolutely nothing. In fact, I started below nothing. And I started growing this little plumbing company with 6 employees to now we have over 3. So I'm assuming like he hadn't, let's take him at his word. He had 0, nothing, less than nothing. So he bought a father, you know, like sea monkeys. He ordered a father monkey off the internet. It came from the same store where that guy's dad buys Mogwai, Gremlins. Anybody seen Gremlins? He bought it from that little magical being pet store, a father. And then he added water, put the father's pill. It's kind of big, you know, it's like the size of like a small suppository. Put it in water, and then a father grew, and he had a daddy, and then his daddy started a plumbing business, or maybe he also inherited it somehow, and then he learned how to do plumbing from this sea daddy that he bought, because remember he started from nothing. He grew his own father, and then he had his father give him the plumbing business. I'm not sure if that made sense. This guy's a fucking liar, total bullshitter. He started with nothing. I had nothing. This is like George W. Bush acting like he was setting out to start the oil business. Starting out from nothing with his CIA Kennedy assassinating dad. I don't know if he was actually, but his dad was the head of the CIA under the Reagan, before the Reagan administration. Then he was Reagan's vice president. And then he was anointed as president in 1992. 88. Yeah. Lame. So yeah, that guy's a total jack satchel. Talkbusiness.net 2014. There was something I was going to read here. Representative Mullin faces ethics investigation over his plumbing business income. What? A politician's capitalist scoundrel lying to the society he claims to serve? I can't. Come on. U.S. Representative Markwayne Mullin, R. Westville, Oklahoma, could be in hot water now that the House Committee on Ethics has received a referral from the Office of Congressional Ethics regarding outside employment activities of the Eastern Oklahoma congressman. At issue is Mullin's continued involvement in Mullin Plumbing, a Broken Arrow-based business he and his wife have owned for at least the last 17 years. Since taking office, Mullin has continued to be the face and voice of the company on television and radio in the Oklahoma City and Tulsa media markets, while also continuing active involvement in the company's day-to-day operations, according to the OCE referral. While Mullin reported personal income of $91,000, there's a bug on my fucking screen. A winged one, so it's not gross. In 2012, when he was elected to Congress, the OCE report that was referred to the Committee on Ethics states that Mullin last year received income from Mullin Plumbing and other companies he owns in excess of $600,000. If Representative Mullin received more than $26,955 of outside earned income in 2013, I guess like you could have a lemonade stand, although $25,000 selling lemonade would be a very lucrative lemonade business. He may have violated House rules and federal law, the report states, adding that he may have also violated House rules and federal law if it is proven that he endorsed any services pursuant to outside employment, as well as serving as an officer or member of the board of directors for one or more of his companies. He was, you know, a lot of these guys have businesses, and they I don't know every single senator's or congressperson's setup, but they usually like step away in a formal sense. Although I'm very sure that most of the time that doesn't really mean they're not still making their comments or interests somehow represented by whoever they hand it off to. But like that's what Trump famously didn't do. And he has a huge network of, comparatively speaking, even compared to Mark Mullin here, or whatever, Markwayne Mullin. So Trump didn't refuse to divest from his all of his holdings or whatever the fuck, and so he made tons of money. I mean, Trump's corruption is far worse than anything this guy's done. This is all fairly standard stuff. So in 2014, they were onto him. Fox 23 News. You decide 2022. Mullin discusses sale of family business. Opponent claims post-sale ethics issue. I'm pressing play.
As part of our You Decide 2022 coverage, a Mullin Plumbing ad you may have seen right here on Fox 23 is now the center of a House ethics complaint made against Republican Senate candidate Markwayne Mullin.
Fox 23's Rick Marinon spoke with the congressman and his opponent about Mullin's plumbing business and its impact on the campaign.
Hi, I'm Markwayne Mullin with Mullin Plumbing, the Red Ritter.
You've heard him say this in the years before he became a congressman.
Hi, I'm Markwayne Mullin with Mullin Plumbing, the Red Ritter.
But Congressman Markwayne Mullin and his wife Christy no longer control Mullin Plumbing. He sold it in 2021. The family business started in 1973. He says Mullin Plumbing was the reason he ran for Congress in the first place.
I never planned on going to Congress, but the federal government came for our business.
It's my wife and I's livelihood.
But the federal government came for our business.
We didn't take that decision lightly. That was tough. I mean, it was a very tough decision for us.
So this society has showered this guy with riches and wealth and provided him with a labor force to produce an immense amount of luxury and more wealth than almost anybody will ever experience in their lifetimes. And he's the victim. He had to do this. Don't you see that the government was just doing too much to hurt poor little small business owner, him and his wife, who were worth tens of millions of dollars?
It was an emotional decision too. I mean, I'll tell you, it was something that my wife and I shed tears over.
Mullin says he and his wife still control about a 10% stake of the company. He told me he insisted on having a hand in the business. He didn't like the thought of someone using his family's name without having a say in how it's used.
2 years ago, people started making a run at us, and we said no, and it got to the point where, as my wife says, she thinks everything in our family is for sale except her and the kids. But it's business.
Since he was
That's right. It probably is everything for sale. Yeah, that's okay. Whatever. There's more to that. His opponent was calling him out. This was news coverage of Oklahoma local stuff. So right here, he's maintaining his minority stake. Next paragraph, and it's that minority stake is where his opponent, Democrat and former Congresswoman Kendra Horn, is crying foul, and it's also why an ethics complaint was filed with the U.S. House of Representatives earlier this year after the ad with Mullin's voice ran. At every single turn, he has violated ethics laws, Horn said, as he's been forced to repay tens of thousands of dollars because he's used his business to further his campaign and vice versa. It is objective fact that he is much, much wealthier now than when he was in Congress. Sounds like Dianne Feinstein. Sounds like Nancy Pelosi. Sounds like a whole bunch of people from that fucking thing. Bernie Sanders is wealthier now, but he's been famous forever and made most of his money from books. But he's not like a 27 millionaire. He wasn't running some fucking business. Buy my books. Buy all my Bernie books. You know, you get famous off this fucking shit and you make money off books. We could also quibble about that. I do think it's somewhat different, but still. A lot of the, I mean, fame is monetizable. Yeah, so I don't know why I'm going on. I just have all these fucking links here. Ethics, this is roll call. Ethics Committee orders Markwayne Mullin to pay back $40,000. But he had to pay it back to the business, so they just made him pay back enough to I don't know. That's fine. I feel like I'm wasting my viewers' times here. It's okay. Here's a tweet. Speaking of these Republicans who think you got to stand on your own, I'm sure he's against any of the student loan repayment stuff. I don't know for sure. Maybe he's the one Republican who thinks that student loans should be forgiven. I don't have the information in front of me. Based on pattern recognition, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that he's against forgiving any of that debt for students. But he took almost $1 million in PPP money that he had forgiven completely. So this hyper millionaire guy with all this money was happy to soak a whole bunch up off of the government so that he could save a little bit of money for himself. This is because he probably could have afforded to pay whatever this was, but that meant that he didn't have to. That's a gift to the ownership of these companies. So yeah, this is an article about all the various members of Congress who got these big PPP loans. Matt Gaetz got $476,000, Greg Pence $79,000, Vern Buchanan $2.8 million, Kevin Hern $1.07 million, Roger Williams $1.43 million, Brett Guthrie $4.3 million. Man, Markwayne Mullin $988,000. So he's on the low end of that whole list. He's on the other half of that one.